I'm here with Alex Feinberg, the one of the people that sort of exemplifies the Renaissance man ideal with a healthy mind, healthy body, both of those. And I think we'll have a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to talking to him, getting his point of view. So, Alex, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
If you could give like a very quick rundown of who you are, what you do, we'll go from there and we'll have fun.
Yeah, presently I am a fitness coach as well as a business coach on Twitter, but I got here over the course of many years because obviously when I grew up in the 90s and 2000s, being a social media influencer wasn't a job. So that wasn't exactly what I told my parents I wanted to do. When I was younger, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. I worked very hard in high school to earn a scholarship to play baseball at Vanderbilt University, which is one of the leading baseball schools in the country now, though it wasn't when I went. That's why they recruited me, because I was good enough to play for them then, not now. Majored in economics when I was an undergrad, started for the baseball team for 4 years. And then after my senior year, I got drafted by the Colorado Rockies. Played a couple years in the minor league system for the Rockies, but one thing that I got from my baseball career, it wasn't very much money, was perspective. I had to understand how the human mind worked. I had to understand how my own mind worked in order to get the most performance out of myself. And so as I was getting done playing baseball, a lot of insight that I gained about human psychology was actually functional, and I repurposed it to get a job at a global macro hedge fund. I befriended former booster of my college baseball team. He recently donated a bunch of money to the program, and I was looking to break into finance. He ran a hedge fund. And he and I got to chatting over Skype for an hour or two a night, a couple times a week. And after a few weeks, he really liked the way that I understood and was articulating what I thought was going on in the world. And so he knew I was a competitive person. He saw me play baseball for 4 years. And he thought I'd be a good addition to his hedge fund. So I went and I moved to Hong Kong, where the hedge fund was based. Spent about 1.5 years working for him. Came to realize that he was a conspiracy theorist, which I understood at the time. But I'm also an open-minded person. So if you're worth $100 million, if you're worth $100 million, and you have ideas that I think are crazy, and I'm not worth $100 million, I'm going to humble myself.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'm going to investigate the things that you're saying, because maybe it's like a shortcut to becoming rich.
No.
Exploring paths that other people won't explore. And so I investigated some of the claims he was making, specifically around the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. And I came to believe what he was saying. You can read the Federal Reserve Act. You can know that, what most people say, it's a private bank controlled by Wall Street. That's true. All that stuff, you can read it in the Federal Reserve Act. They're shareholders. Yes, you can read that in the Federal Reserve Act.
It's not actually conspiracy theory, right?
Yeah, it's like, can you read what's in a legislature? Yeah, it's like a 29-page document. It's not like reading the Affordable Care Act. You have to read 3,000 pages. You can read it over lunch. It's like 29 pages long. Yeah. And so I read the 29 pages and I'm like, oh, wow, it does say what the conspiracy videos say it says. And so, working for him for the 1.5 years that I did, I came to the conclusion that Silicon Valley was actually going to benefit more than any other sector because of our privatized central bank. And I came to believe that because we believed that Wall Street was still somewhat underwater from the 2008 crisis in 2011, 2012, 2013, and they were going to continue to be for a while, we thought interest rates were going to stay low nearly indefinitely. And so I thought, in a low interest rate, in an artificially low interest rate environment, what sector is going to do the best? Tech's going to do the best. The companies have the highest sensitivity to cost of capital. And so I thought, if there's an easy way for me to make $100 million, being in tech is probably the easiest way. So I'm going to go do that. I elevator pitched my way into Google using some of the social psychology shortcuts that I observed in baseball. Was able to convince them, over the course of 3 minutes, that they should hire me to a job that I had no qualifications to do, but I could talk to people. And so I got that role, joined in a sales capacity, spent 2 years doing that. Switched to a strategy team, despite the fact that an internal recruiter told me I didn't have the qualifications to work on the team. I did not listen to her and convinced them that I deserved a spot, and they ultimately gave it to me. So I spent 2 years doing that. Then I did product partnerships, like working on Google Search, working on Google Assistant, working with media partners to deliver content to those product experiences. And then the crypto markets took off. And as the crypto markets were taking off, I realized that a lot of the stuff I was learning at the hedge fund aligned with the crypto industry. And so this whole time I've been training hard every day because I noticed as a baseball player that being in good shape is a good cheat code in life. People will judge you by your appearance, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. And so rather than fighting the human experience, you should align your actions to take into account the shortcuts that other people are going to make in order to assess you. And so I stayed working out hard most days. And by the time I entered the crypto space, I realized that my approach to fitness was a lot easier and a lot more sustainable than what everybody says it has to be. You know, I was getting in such good shape that I would wonder in the back of my head, like, is somebody putting steroids in my water? I'm not supposed to have these types of abs. Like, I'm not that shredded of a person.
Yeah.
Why have I found out at 30, 31 years old that I have like ab veins? This is bizarre. And so I thought, you know, when I joined the crypto space, that everybody who had any lasting value in the space, it seemed to have about 10,000 Twitter followers or more. So I decided I needed to have a Twitter account, and I didn't have much success growing it, focusing on crypto. So I thought, well, I actually have like really good content that I want to share on the fitness side. Let me see how that goes, sharing that. So all I was doing was documenting all the meals I was eating, all the workouts I was doing, and, you know, posting shirtless pictures of me. And, you know, several months in, people were amazed, like, how are you eating so much food yet staying this ripped? And 8-9 months in, people were like asking for more content. So I released my first ebook. Through COVID, I was able to turn, you know, kind of daily sales into like predictable monthly revenue. And then by 2021, the online fitness business had grown to over $10,000 a month of profits. And I decided I wanted to focus on that full time. So I've been doing this full time since May of 2021, and finding out there are more and more avenues that people think I can help them in, because I guess to your point, you know, being a Renaissance man, you don't just understand fitness. It starts with understanding the mind. And if you understand the mind, you can understand the body, you can understand politics, you can understand negotiations. And so I'm sort of a jack of all trades in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, you just took me through like over a decade worth of life experience, right?
Yeah.
That was a fast ride. Holy shit. Like you go like pro baseball to venture capital to conspiracy theory to Google.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
quickly.
you know, and people are always amazed. Well, how did you jump from doing this to doing that to doing this to doing that? They're so disconnected. But that's the thing. The thing about being a Renaissance man is you understand that there's an overarching connectivity to how everything works, right? Clearly, if they were actually all unique ventures, nobody would be able to do it.
No, true.
But once you realize that there's sort of a natural order to how the universe works, and humans make decisions in nearly every industry, and people work in teams, and teams have a specific way that they function and they don't function, then you realize, like, if you simply understand how people are wired, you can jump from sports to finance to tech to entrepreneurship. The commonality is understanding the human condition and the human mind.
Let me, for a second, let me take you back to the baseball days, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what age are you when you start baseball?
Well, I started playing when I was 6 years old. Play t-ball.
Super young.
Yeah.
And like, what age are you when you realize, or when people around you realize, that you're very talented?
Probably 16 or so. Well, I mean, when I was 8 or 9, I was clearly better than a lot of the other people that I played with. So I'd be making all-star teams at younger ages, than some of my peers.
Yeah.
But, 8, 9 years old, it's sort of like, that's a little bit early to project people being major leaguers or anything like that. And so it wasn't until high school where, I was fortunate that the best defensive game I ever had was the first game, really the first inning that I played in front of my high school coach. Cool. And so he saw me play that game. He got me involved in higher level competition through a travel team. And that travel team got me, exposure to all the top scouts, all the top college coaches. And I worked very, very hard to perform in front of them. And I also had to, create neural pathways that allowed me to manage stress in order to perform in front of them.
Help me out for a sec. What's a travel team? I'm European. I don't know all this stuff.
So your parents pay several $1,000s a year, so you can go to multiple locations within the U.S.
Really?
Play tournaments.
Holy shit.
Because think about it. If you're a college coach, think of college sports as an industry. It's a for-profit industry. And so the industry, the head coach at a big time school might make $1 million a year, and he's going to have a recruiting budget. And so he's going to be going on the road. Well, he can't go and see every player from every state he's interested in. So those players are going to go meet in like centralized locations. So tournament operators are going to realize like, oh, we can put on a tournament here and we can get all the best players. And if we get all the best players,
like a road show.
Yeah. You get all the best players, all the coaches are going to come. And if the coaches come, the best players come. And we can charge everybody money. And so that's how it works. Is like you pay these the road show organizers effectively to get the good players in front of the good coaches. And they're high pressure events because you've been working your whole life. The Stanford coach is here, the Vanderbilt coach is here. He's taking notes on me, and you're being watched. Every play of every game, you're being watched. Yeah. And so you have to develop the ability to perform under pressure. You need to understand how to reorient things in your mind to make them less stressful so you can perform. And the skills that I had to develop playing baseball at a high level for many years transfer so well into the working world, because the working world is filled with experiences that will knock you off your mental game, manipulative people who will try to get you to do things that are in their best interest, not yours. 100%. And developing the mental skills that I developed as a college and professional baseball player has really come in handy in order to allow me to essentially work for myself as an entrepreneur. I don't think I'd be able to do it had I not had this experience in elite sports.
So when you start doing like the roadshow stuff, right? How old are you at this point?
15.
Like when you're a 15 or 16-year-old kid, this doesn't come naturally, right?
You're playing a sport that you've played for a while. You're just playing at a high level. So it's like when I was 13, 14, 12, 11, like I played on all-star teams, right? I played baseball all my summers. So you're playing the same sport that you've played your whole life. You're just playing it in a different area in front of more people who are
the pressure,
higher profile.
I remember the first time that because we're of similar age. We have a somewhat similar background where I played pro sports from a young age. And I remember the first time playing against like actual adults, like when I was like 14, 15. And there was an actual audience, like, I don't know, not too many people, maybe, I don't know, 500, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people came to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between that and a training court is massive. Like the pressure and the emotion and the energy is so different. Like you must have experienced that that's a thing, right?
Yeah. It took a while because the closer you are to 16, at least when I played, the closer you were to 17 years old, the more scouts would come. So if you're a couple years away from being recruited at 15 years old, maybe there's a coach here or there coming, right? Mm-hmm. Most of the people in the stands are parents, right? But occasionally you'll have a scout, a coach.
Yeah.
It's not until, and so there's a crescendo to it, right? You kind of start with maybe there's one coach at your game, but usually none.
Yeah.
And then, okay, maybe there's one or two. Okay, now there's like definitely one, sometimes 1 to 4. And then by the time you're a junior, you've had a couple years of experience playing in front of a coach here or there, scout here or there. And then you start going to these big events where they're timing your running speed. They're judging your throwing arm against, professional arms.
Yeah.
And there's 20 scouts in the audience, 30 scouts and coaches in the audience. And then if you do well in those events in front of 20 or 30 scouts, then you play in front of 300. but you don't play in front of 300 scouts unless you do well in front of 30 scouts. You don't play in front of 30 scouts unless you do well in front of 3 scouts. So it's incremental in terms of your exposure to higher profile games. But yeah, by the time you're playing in front of 30 scouts or more, it is nerve-wracking, very nerve-wracking. And that sort of led me to realize that performance is optimized when you can convince yourself of things that aren't true, right? And that's something that you see in incredibly successful people. If you've seen The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, to me, that was a masterclass in effectively lying to yourself. How do you tell yourself the narrative, not a true narrative, but a narrative that enables you to perform at the highest level you possibly can? And performative truth is important for athletes, because athletes don't care what the reality is. They just care if they win. And sometimes you need to tell yourself a narrative that isn't true, but puts you in the best position to win.
Yeah, I think I heard Zig Ziglar say once that, you're not lying, but you're telling the truth in advance. Like, you're just saying to yourself, like, this is going to happen.
Yeah, that's
like, you hope it's going to happen.
John McEnroe, when he was like the 20th ranked player in the world, knocked off the number 1 player or whatever, and somebody asked him, like, "Hey, John, like, was it hard being the number 20 player in the world, knocking off the number 1 player in the world?" And his response was, "No, I was the number 1 player in the world.
Exactly.
The rankings just hadn't caught up yet."
I'm telling the truth in advance. Yeah, exactly. That's the way.
But I mean, that's correct. Like, if you beat the number 1 player in the world, you're the number 1 player in the world. The rankings truly just haven't caught up yet.
By definition, yeah. I already knew. Yeah. But they didn't. No, I think that's beautiful. And so, I mean, you're making your way through the ranks, and like, is there a certain point where, let me say it in a different way. For me, when I was around 18, 19, I got to a level, and I noticed that some players that were like 15, 16, they were better than me. And they were better than me because there was some elusive quality I just didn't have. Like, I trained really hard. I was fit. I was strong. I could do it. But these guys were like, they were next level. They were just better than me. And at one point I realized, holy shit. I mean, maybe I could make it and just grind it out, but I'll never be world class. Did you have that realization, or did that never happen for you?
No, I did. I mean, in college, there were definitely players who could just power through workouts that I couldn't get through. Like, I just wouldn't benefit from them as much. I had teammates who, every scout in the country was following, and every scout in the country wasn't following me. Yeah. And so, by the time I was 21 years old, I'd have multiple teammates who got 7-figure signing bonuses that I didn't get. Right. And so it was very clear to me, even when I got drafted, that I did not have the same opportunity that the first round draft picks had. A lot of my friends got million or several $1 million. I got $1,000 to play. So clearly, like, we're entering the sport with a different expected trajectory.
Exactly.
So I understood that the odds were stacked against me, and I couldn't hit home runs the way those guys could do it. So I wasn't as fast as some of them. I got that.
No, I see. And like, but you enter anyway. Do you enter like with the intention of making your way up to the millions of dollars of salary? What was your mindset when you were doing this?
Yes and no. I mean, it was the culmination of several years of goals that I had when I was a younger kid. And so it was like, well, why are you working so hard to be a Major League Baseball player? So you just put yourself in a position where you maximize the likelihood of that goal coming to fruition. Yeah. The other thing that is talked about less is, like, as a college athlete in the United States, you don't really have that much time to focus on things outside of sports. And especially if you're playing a major sport in a major conference, which I was. SEC baseball is a top 3 sport and a top 3 conference. Yeah. And so, I wasn't doing internships on Wall Street like a lot of my classmates were doing. I didn't understand how businesses worked. And so when everybody else was getting jobs, was like, well, I guess I'll play pro baseball. I don't really know. I don't know. I don't want to worry about that. And so in some respect, it was like chasing a dream. And in another respect, it was like delaying the decisions of adulthood. Like, what do you want to do? I don't know what I want to do. I'll just keep playing baseball.
Yeah. No, I see what you mean. Like baseball was basically your life.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
So, and at a certain point, I mean, I know for me that time came, but I imagine for you as well, where you realize, oh man, maybe I should look at other options.
Yeah.
And how do you get from there to your like venture capital conspiracy theorist dude?
So a lot of people, I was an economics major in school, and so a lot of people encouraged me to get into investment banking. Oh, you're an athlete. Banks love athletes. Okay, I don't really know what an investment bank. I didn't know at the time what an investment bank did, and so I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean? I go meet people here and there, learn a little bit more about financial markets, develop an interest in foreign currencies and in foreign currency trading. And so I realized that my team had a booster who owned multiple businesses in Asia. So I actually, and his son had added me on Facebook as a friend at the time. And so I didn't know what his businesses were. I just knew he had several businesses in Asia, probably had connection to foreign currency desks for hedging purposes. Yeah. And I figured, hey, let me connect with your dad to see if there's any desks he can help me get an interview with.
What's a booster? Help me out.
Oh, somebody who donates money, a donor.
Okay.
Right? A financial donor.
All right.
And so his son connected me to him. And he's like, why don't you just talk to him? I didn't realize that he ran a hedge fund at the time. I thought that he just owned a few different businesses. I didn't know that he worked on Wall Street, was on the board of directors of a major investment bank in the 80s. Yeah. Went to the University of Chicago, like very, very well versed in Wall Street lore and neoliberal economics. And so he and I just got to talking. I didn't get to talking to him initially because I was expecting to work for him. I just knew he was rich and figured he knew some people who I might work for. Well, it turns out I ended up working for him because he liked the way that I thought.
And how old were you at this time?
23.
So 23. All right. And you finished your education?
Yeah. I graduated Vanderbilt June 2008, and I played the summer of 2008 as well as the summer of 2009 professionally. And then in the beginning of 2010 was when I got invited to go play the preseason spring training with my baseball team, but I knew they were gonna release me in spring training. They released the guy ahead of me that spring training. So if they released the guy ahead of me, they're gonna release me. And so I just wrote a thing, hey, thanks for including me. I'm peace out. I'm not showing up.
Yeah, no, I
probably pissed him off. It definitely pissed him off, but it didn't piss him off because they wanted me there. It pissed him off because they wanted to be the one telling me,
yeah, exactly,
you're not welcome. And I was the one telling them, like, it's
like a chick breaking up.
Like exactly.
Yeah, no, that's not good. Yeah,
exactly. People were asking about me because they call me Chino, right? Because I'm Chinese and there's a lot of Spanish speakers, and so they're like, "Where's Chino?" So he's like, "Oh, Chino retired." And one of the coaches was like, "Oh, Chino didn't retire; he quit."
Yeah,
whatever, dude. Call it whatever you want, but like,
retire.
Give me 2 years. I'm making more money than all you guys. So
yeah, good.
Yeah.
So and around this time, we like I said, you and I are both similar ages. The internet is not the same as it is now, right?
Oh, no.
It's vastly different. Like people can't imagine, but I mean, in leading up to this conversation, you mentioned that being an influencer was not a thing back then. It was not a thing at all. Like, I mean, the whole interconnection of spheres wasn't really. It's hard to explain, right? I mean, was Twitter there? I think Twitter was there, but it wasn't like now.
I mean, it wasn't like now. I remember actually seeing ESPN talk about follow us on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking back in 2007, that's so stupid. Like, why would you follow them on Twitter? You can follow them on Facebook. Why would I care? Like, what does Twitter do that Facebook doesn't?
It's weird.
Why would you follow them on Twitter? right? And I remember there's just this huge push from all these media companies, follow us on Twitter, follow us and that. I'm like, this is stupid, whatever.
No, I
Turns out
agree.
I make money off of it.
And so you sort of, I mean, you hit it off in a way where you have a connection to someone that is pretty well connected, pretty powerful, pretty weird as well, if I hear you correctly.
Oh yeah.
And then you get offered a job, and you make a big leap. I mean, you just move from like the US to a whole other country. That's not a small thing, right?
Yeah, well, I underestimated how challenging it would be. I kind of thought, because I've been living out of a suitcase for the previous couple of years as a baseball player.
Yeah.
Live in one place for a couple of weeks, a couple of days, go to another place for a few days, go to another place for a few days, go to another place for a few months. So it's just like I was just used to kind of picking up and going.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "You want to work for me?" Like, yeah, sure, why not? Had I been to Asia before? No. Did I know anybody in Asia besides him? No. Did I know anybody who worked in the financial services industry? Not really. Like I knew a couple of people, but I didn't really know anything about anything. So it turns
I'll be
out,
fine.
yeah, turns out, moving to a new continent, working in a new industry at a new company, knowing nobody, that's a lot of stress to throw on your shoulders at 23 years old. It was a little bit more than I tolerated well at the time. It took me several months to gain my footing. And also, when you get done playing elite sports, you go through depression without really understanding why. I realized it was because nothing in my day-to-day could replicate the dopamine of performing in front of thousands of people. I didn't know what it was. I just kind of felt very lethargic, aimless my first several months there. And I wasn't sleeping well. So I just kind of figured out it's because I'm not sleeping well. And after like 3, 4, 5 months of it, I was like, oh no, it's because I am used to at least a couple times a week doing something well in front of thousands of people and having them applaud. And I don't have that now. And there's nothing that I can do in any day that will replicate what that feels like. So
100%.
that's why I have these symptoms that seem like depression. And once I realized that's what I was dealing with, I created a plan to get out of it, and I got out of it.
But how do you do that?
I thought I needed more structure. I mean, one of the things that I was lacking, knowing very few people, was like I don't have a close group of friends that I can trust. I knew guys, but I just didn't know them that well.
Yeah.
And I'm also working for a conspiracy theorist who's going to be very suspicious of everybody. So that's going to naturally make me more suspicious of other people. So, other people who I'm close with now, still friends with now, at that time, I'm like, I don't know, can I trust this person? Whatever. And so I just realized I need more routine, right? And so I just started, I'm like, okay, let me just go to the gym every morning. So Monday through Friday, I go to the gym every morning before work. Let me go to church every Sunday, no matter how late I was out Saturday night, which is late every night. I wake up and go to church. And so I just put myself in an environment where I regained some stability and slowly was able to work my way out of, the mini depression that I had post baseball career.
All right. And so, I mean, you get a semblance of structure. That's all clear. But you're in a whole new country. You don't speak the language, I assume.
Well, they speak English in Hong Kong, but I don't speak Cantonese. No.
All right. But you got around speaking English.
Yeah.
All right. And so and what does your work actually entail at this point? What do you have to do?
I'm researching conspiracy theories.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, Alex, I want you to read about the Rothschild family. I want you to read about, read about this, read about that. Okay. So if you want me to.
So that was your job. That was what you had to do. Okay.
Yeah, you got to realize this fund manager did not structure his company the way like normal funds would structure their company, and so he had no problem just telling you research all this stuff. And I did it for a few months. And then I realized, that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to make money researching this. I need to develop skills that other people will pay me for. And I started doing a little bit more investment analysis.
That makes sense.
And so I started doing a little bit more investment analysis. But, it was kind of clear to me, there's no plan. There's no plan for my career here. So I need to, get myself in an environment where I can, actually build off of what I was doing. That being said, if I just like kind of took what I was learning and decided like, oh, you know what, I should buy a bunch of Bitcoin because like it seems like this is aligned with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have bought Bitcoin for like $2 Bitcoin.
And this is like 2010.
Yeah. Yeah, his son, the fund manager's son was buying Bitcoin to get drugs off of Silk Road.
All right.
And so
Silk Road, that takes me back, man. That's a long time ago. Holy shit.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I very easily could have bought like 1,000 Bitcoin at like $2 each back then and just sat on them, right? And done literally nothing with my life since then. And like, you know, things would have been all right. But you know, I decided I didn't conceptualize what the future could look like. I didn't understand network effects. And so I moved to Silicon Valley, which is probably the second best thing I could have done with my time at the time. And
but aside from the Federal Reserve thing, right? Did you uncover any conspiracy theories that were actually viable, that were interesting?
I think the U.S. entrance into World War I was to bail out Wall Street.
It's interesting.
I don't know how you guys are taught in Europe about the United States' entry in World War I, but how I was taught in high school was that the Germans sunk the Lusitania, so the U.S. entered the war.
Yes.
Kind of taught that, right? Don't really think about it that much. And then when I'm researching all these conspiracies, I realized that, Wall Street was heavily funding the UK. And they thought the UK was going to just rout the Germans. They thought it was like a couple bucks pretty easily. Yeah. And that didn't happen, right? The Germans were very close to encircling Britain, and Britain didn't have enough food, probably still doesn't have enough food to be self-sufficient. And so if they can't import goods, they will have famines, or, you know, and the social chaos that results from famines. And so they would have had to surrender. And so at that point, Wall Street realized, like, we're not going to get paid back if the U.S. doesn't enter the war and stop the Germans from encircling England. Yeah. And so J.P. Morgan had connections with every major newspaper, like the top 25, which he understood would be very, very relevant to influence public opinion. And they started beating the drum for war. They used what Sigmund Freud's nephew, Edward Bernays, who was, you know, coined the godfather of the public relations industry. They used the strategy that he came up with, and the slogan, keeping the world safe for democracy. You'll kind of notice this democracy phrase being repeated today. Yeah, and so having seen this BBC documentary 20 years ago that kind of showed, like, the first actually major propaganda campaign, you know, post-Freudian psychology, was to get the U.S. citizens to support entry into World War I, and they used democracy as an excuse to get that support. You're like, all right, well, do people talk about saving democracy now? Like, yeah, they do. Okay, they're probably
it's a good thing they never tried that again, right?
Right. And so, you know, and then you look at the timeline, like the U.S. didn't even enter World War I until like 2 years after the Lusitania was sunk. So like, that's a little bit ridiculous to think like, we entered World War I because the Germans sunk the Lusitania. It's like, we entered World War II like the day after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. You have like 72 hours to declare war. Otherwise, you can't say it's for that event. And so I'm pretty sure how 21, 25 months, however many months lapsed between the Germans sinking the Lusitania and the U.S. entering the war. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure the Germans, that was the first, and the U.S. entered the war. And the Wall Street explanation made a lot of sense. I'm like, yeah, obviously they don't want to, you know, take massive haircuts or zeros on their loans to Britain. So like,
makes a lot of sense.
That happened. Yeah.
So you're researching all this stuff. You realize there's no real future in it, and you start, broadening your horizons. And then from your conspiracy theorist benefactor to like Silicon Valley, how did that step go? Like, did he blame you? Was there any bad blood?
No, because he didn't the people who are really, really good at understanding systems
Yeah.
don't understand people that well. And so like his personnel choices, uh, just weren't necessarily that great. I wasn't a good fit at the hedge fund.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't have like a clear role that I could
Yeah.
do. And I wasn't mature enough to like kind of figure out like, okay, this is what they need, this is what I can do, here's how I'm gonna make it fit.
Yeah.
And so, I don't think he wanted to keep me on payroll, and I don't think I wanted to stay on payroll. So I just said, hey, I'm going to go
Yeah.
after and my visa was expiring. So that made it easy. It's like they would have had to apply for another visa for me, or I would have gone home. And I just said, hey, I'm going to go home and try to work in tech. And I made it happen. Ultimately, I figured out how to get invited into Google and talk my way into a job there.
So, and I might skip from one point to the next, but at one point in your life, you start to get fat,
Mm-hmm.
as did I, by the way. Like, at what point is this? Like, where are you in the timeline?
In my 20s. So, sorry, let me get this gum.
So, is this in the conspiracy theory time or the Google time?
More Google, right?
All right.
And it took time. Like I never got super fat, but I was fatter than I realized, right? And so I remember I was working out every morning because I wanted to be in shape, and I realized that being in good shape would open a lot of doors for me. And so like when I took that picture with my shirt off that you're thinking about that I post online all the time, I wasn't thinking I was fat. I thought I was like, oh, I'm pretty shape. It's only now that I'm like a lot leaner. I look back, I'm like, oh,
you're chubby.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's my grandma keeps a picture of me, and it's the picture of me at my absolute fattest, and it's really embarrassing. Like I look at it, like this fat face with the glasses. It's really bad.
Yeah. So, my approach to life and eating in my 20s was I just want to eat like an aristocrat. I'm just going to eat delicious food every meal of every day. I'm going to enjoy life. I love eating, and I'm going to work out. So to make it all work, I'm going to work out so I can eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
And so I always loved eating protein. I always loved eating meat. And so, I'm going to train hard. I'm going to eat what I want. That's just how it's going to be. I'm not going to have abs. No big deal. I don't have the genetics for abs. I didn't think I did. So, I'm just going to train hard, eat well, stay in shape. There'll be people who are leaner than me, but they can eat their sissy salads. I'm going to eat my steak. It wasn't until 2014 that I joined a new team at Google, and then I was working with a triathlete. And I realized like this guy's almost as strong as me, but he can run multiple 6-minute miles on repeat. That's pretty cool. I would like to be able to do that too. And so it was only from working with this guy that I changed how I was approaching my cardio. I started running fewer miles, but faster. And that was not supposed to lead to fat loss. If you follow exercise science now,
That's interesting, man. Yeah.
Like exercise science back then was saying, well, if you want to burn fat, do cardio at a low heart rate because
100%.
you're going to be in the fat burning zone. You burn more calories from fat, less from glycogen. And I just ran fewer miles faster. And if you run fewer miles, you burn fewer calories running fewer miles, right? Calories are a function of weight times distance. And so, if you're running fewer miles, you should burn fewer calories. But 3 weeks after starting to run fewer miles, but faster, fat just started melting off my body. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. I did not expect that. But let me just roll with it. Let me assume that this isn't a fluke. I'm going to just see where this goes. And so I was going on like death runs multiple times a week, trying to run 4 miles as fast as I could every time I went out there. And I got my time down. I cut my time down almost a minute from the middle of 2014 till the end of it. And I also lost like 3% body fat that I didn't think I had to lose. I didn't think that I had 3% body fat that I could lose, but I did. And then I lost a couple more after that, simply changing the way I did cardio and doing things that weren't supposed to work for fat loss, but they did.
Let me interrupt you there because it's funny. I actually like a couple days ago, I asked this question, and because I was on I work out basically every day. And I'm on this treadmill, right? Absolutely despise running and walking as well. I mean, you have to do it, but I don't like it anyway, whatever. And there's this like table on a treadmill saying, yeah, if you're at this heart rate. And so I asked this question on Twitter. Like, I don't get it. Like, I mean, what if let's say I walk for an hour at 5 kilometers an hour, however miles that is, I don't know. And I run twice as fast for 30 minutes. How in the hell would the second one burn more fat than the first one? How would my body even know the difference between calories burned while walking, calories burned by, while running? I don't get it. And I got a few pretty good answers, but I'd love your take on it, because you've spoken out about the fallacy of calories in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, you'll probably correct me, but for me, it's like a sort of a mathematical equation where, if I burn 500 calories skipping rope or walking or running, doesn't fucking matter, because I burn 500 calories. That's it.
Yeah. So there's a couple parts to this response, but I'll answer your question first before getting into why this is so important for other people.
Good.
So the calories that you burn doing an activity, there's three items that matter: how much you weigh, how far you go, and how long it takes. And the reason how long it takes matters, and the reason why you burn more calories doing cardio at a slower rate, is you burn calories just sitting down, right? If we do this, if we do this show for an hour, I will burn 100 calories, probably a little bit more than 100 calories sitting down and talking to you. Okay, so if I were to compare two activities, one activity is I will run a mile and it takes 6 minutes to run. I'm going to burn about 150 calories. Or I'm going to walk a mile and it's going to take me an hour to do it. Well, okay, so I burned 150 calories from the motion, from moving, but then I've also burned 100 calories because it took an hour. Yeah. Right. And so my resting metabolic rate is factored into the amount of calories that I burn doing the exercise. Why this is also silly, and why it's kind of pointless quantitative analysis for people who are so fixated on the calories that they burn while they're exercising, is active people burn 80% of their calories at rest, right? They don't burn their calories while they're working out. If you look at, my resting metabolic rate is like 2,500, 2,600 calories a day. And then just walking around talking on the phone, doing podcasts, I'm going to burn another 600-700 calories doing that. And so before I've even entered the gym, I'm burning 3,300 calories in a day. And maybe at the gym, if I work out hard for an hour, I burn 600-700 calories.
Oh, wait. You were at 2,500 a day, and before you enter the gym, what did you say? How many calories did you burn?
I'm probably at 3,300 calories a day without going to the gym. All right. If I just stay at home, talk on the phone, talk to clients, send some tweets out, do a podcast.
Yeah, just your daily activities.
Yeah, like zero exercise, just like walking to the refrigerator, walking to my car, walking to get my nail, 3,300 calories, right? Yeah. Now, if I have an intense workout for an hour, maybe that's another 700 calories. Okay. Yeah. So all in, I burned 4,000 calories that day, but 80% of those calories came when I was at home, not when I was at the gym.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
So why would you structure your workouts to maximize the calories that you're burning for 20% of the day, when you can structure your workouts to maximize the calories that you're burning for the other 80%, for the 80% of the calories that you're burning at rest, while you're sitting down, while you're sleeping, while you're driving? And modern exercise science falsely assumes that your resting metabolic rate is fixed. They assume, okay, well, you can't, you can control how many calories you're burning in the gym. You can't control how many calories you're burning at rest. Yeah. It's like, no, that's not true. Like, there's there's ways you can train that may burn fewer calories in the gym, but will alter your metabolism so that you're burning more calories away from the gym. And that trade-off will never make sense if you assume that you can track all of your calories, go on your Apple Watch, you know how many calories you burned, you go on your MyFitnessPal, you know how many calories you've eaten.
Yeah.
All of these are false assumptions built upon false assumptions. You can't actually track how many calories you eat because the FDA permits food companies to be off by up to 20% with their labeling, and that's just the speed limit.
Yeah, I saw that. A lot of that stuff is bullshit, right?
Yes. Any caloric burn estimate is just an estimate, right? Like you'd have to burn your body in order to figure out how many calories you're actually burning. So nobody's doing that. They're all estimates.
Yeah.
Your resting metabolic rate, if you go to a trainer or registered dietitian and they say, okay, well, you're going to burn 2,000 calories at rest. They don't know that. They're guessing.
Yeah.
It's average. But what if you're not average? And what if there's ways you can change your diet that make you above average? And what if there's ways you can change your diet and exercise that make you below average? Which would you prefer?
Oh, wait. I mean, your body burns calories, right?
Yeah.
What does your diet have to do with it then?
So if you're eating, the more food you eat, the better your body gets at processing the food. The less food you eat, the better your body gets at conserving the food, right? Yeah. So your body dynamically responds to the inputs that you give to it. So if you don't eat a lot of food, your body's going to become more efficient at stretching out all those calories than if you're like,
right.
Like if you don't make as much money, you're probably going to be better at saving money. If you make a lot of money, you're going to spend more money. If you just realize I'll make $2,000 every day, I'll just buy a one.
So if I just eat unlimited stuff, I'll lose weight?
No, I'm not saying you lose weight because just because your metabolism increases, doesn't mean it's increased at such a rate that it's going to burn the excess calories that you're putting in your body. So that you're still facing that challenge. But what a lot of people also don't consider is that if you're training at a high intensity and you're eating a lot of protein dominant real food, it becomes a lot easier to train at a higher intensity. In fact, you can move heavier weight faster. And being able to train at an increasingly high intensity is the key to growing your resting metabolic rate. That's how you do it.
That's actually good. Yeah.
So if you're not
eating, work on the 80%, not the 20%.
Exactly. You need to eat in a way that allows you to train at a high level. And you need to rest in a way that allows you to train at a high level. So the modern approach to fat loss is, well, you want to move more and eat less. It's like, maybe you do. Probably most people do need to do that, but not everybody needs to do that. Some people need to eat more and move less because they're not resting enough. And because they're not resting enough, they're not able to put the necessary intensity to get their training to be at a high level that will result in a metabolic adaptation that will enable them to burn fat when they sleep.
So because that was one of the things that I wanted to ask you. Like there's a decent sized audience that is into fasting. Mm-hmm. And I fasted for, the longest I fasted was for like 5 days or something. And there's this constant like dialogue going on where people say, on the one hand, like fasting sort of eats up your body fat. And the other side says, hey man, if you fast, your body sort of gets the message and it starts conserving energy, etc. How is that? Like, what's the deal with fasting?
Well, they're probably both true, right? And so just because, like, you got to realize the human body's complex. So you can do something that's good in one area but harmful in another area, right? Yeah. The human body doesn't just say, well, this is good for me. Sleep is generally good, but like, and water is generally good, but not always.
It's not A-B.
You can have too much water. You can have, so fasting, for most people, fasting works because they just eat less. You can't inject calories into your body when you're not eating.
Yeah.
There is cell regeneration that happens through extended fasts. I don't think that the people who do fast are losing weight because of that primarily. I think they're primarily losing weight because they're eating less. And if you're eating less, like, your metabolism, your resting metabolic rate should slow down. But, if you're eating 1,000 calories less per day, but your resting metabolic rate's only down 400 calories less per day, you're still like, the balance is still in the favor of losing weight.
You're ahead, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But I don't do any of that stuff. because my program is oriented around performance increases, and you don't increase your performance by fasting.
So you get weaker by fasting?
You're not eating, right? Do you think that, I mean, how many Olympic lifters, how many Olympic sprinters fast?
I'd assume very little.
Maybe lifters if they're trying to make weight for weigh-in, but they would never do it for performance reasons, right? I doubt any sprinters intentionally fast. Do they skip breakfast? I'm sure some of them skip breakfast, but I doubt any Olympic sprinters are fasting, right? So it's like people are so silly when they look at like, well, you know, this is what you need to do to like lose weight. It's like, do you really think that elite athletes are like intentionally trying to lose fat? Like the lazy ones who like to party too much are, but most of them are not intentionally trying to lose fat. They're actually struggling to eat enough food, right? And so why would you try to pursue a strategy that's hard when you can pursue a strategy that works by accident, which is like training at a high level? Works by accident. It works so well that most people who do it can't eat enough food.
And I mean, let's say you're really, really, really fat, like can't even walk fat. Would you still prefer your way instead of fasting?
No. I mean, if you can't walk, then how are you going to train intensely? Right?
Like, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, you need to
lifting your arm.
Right. You need to have basic. Yeah, I'm not telling those people to do sets of 3 arm lifts. No, like if you're very, very fat, you need to get in shape so your body can handle challenging workouts. So there's like multiple phases of training. The first phase for a sedentary person is get the body in the condition that it needs to be to lift weights.
Yeah.
Right. If you're sedentary, your body's not like, you know, no intelligent trainer is going to say, "Oh, sedentary person, here's 225 pounds. Let's go squat. Let's go squat this." Like, no, that's how you get hurt. Like, there's a slow progression from sedentary to being ready to lift weights to lifting weights to reducing the frequency that you're lifting weights so that you can maximize the efficacy of each training session. So yeah, that's a multi-year process.
Like, and how are you in the whole, like that's another thing, like with the whole low carb, all meat stuff. How is your take on that?
I eat carbs. Carbs help me perform. But I do restrict my carbs. I probably have about half the carbs of most elite athletes, which is a lot more carbs than keto, but a lot less carbs than the average elite athlete. I've noticed that carbs enhance my hunger. And so the more carbs I'm eating, the more food I'm eating, not just carbs, but protein and fat. And so I've found that if I want to eat without counting calories, I need to make sure that my protein consumption is roughly in line with my carb consumption, whatever level that is. If I'm super hungry, I might have 250 grams of carbs and 250 grams of protein on the same day. If I'm not that hungry, maybe I have 150 of each. But I try to keep them roughly in line. And what that means, no, I'm not weighing and measuring everything. I just look at my plate, and the largest geography on the plate needs to be covered by an animal protein.
Yeah, no, I see. Like you after a while, you sort of you get a feel for the different like values, right? How many carbs are in it, like how many protein. Okay, I get it. And how do you look at vegans and vegetarian people?
I think that it's one of the dumbest decisions you could make.
It's haram.
Well, they're mentally ill. I mean, you would talk to a lot of them in San Francisco, and like they have emotional, they have challenges regulating their emotions. And I did not think, I really did think that it was causal, right? I did not like, yes, any extreme diet is going to attract crazy people. And so the starting conditions are going to be, there's more people who are inclined for insanity who are going to even attempt this. But I actually think that like not withdrawing meat and protein from your diet makes you crazy. And I think there's been research coming out over the last few years that suggests that this is probably true. So like a lot of the most aggressive people are vegans and vegetarians because their brains aren't working properly because they don't have sufficient nutrients.
I think like a couple days ago, I did a tweet saying like veganism is a mental disorder. So this lines up perfectly like that. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Causes mental disorders.
We're on the same, wavelength. That's great.
Yeah.
How do because you've been in professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
I'm inclined to say feel free to disagree. But all professional athletes, or the vast majority, are on steroids.
Depends on the sport.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. But when in doubt, I just assume that they're on steroids. How does the whole like diet thing work into when you're on gear?
I've never done it myself, but you still need to eat a lot of food, and I think you have a little bit more margin for error for how you eat.
Yeah.
But I don't actually think that 100% of professional athletes are on steroids. I think that
No, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but I do feel that the vast majority is probably on it.
It depends. If a sport is purely physical, I do think that 100% of elite sprinters are on steroids. 95%, maybe there's one person.
Okay.
A vast majority of elite sprinters are going to be on steroids.
Yeah.
A vast majority of elite powerlifters are going to be on steroids.
Yeah.
A vast majority of distance runners are probably going to be doing EPO. Right.
Yeah.
So if the sport is purely physical, then yes, the people who are going to be 7 standard deviations above the mean are almost always going to be cheating, because cheating gets you 2 standard deviations better. And so good luck being a dude who's a 6 Sigma performer out competing the 5 Sigma performer who's cheating. That guy's going to beat you.
Yeah.
But sports with a little bit more skill. I wouldn't think that many golfers are on steroids. Baseball, clearly some baseball players are on steroids. I think a lot of baseball players are still not on steroids.
Yeah, there's a fuckload of growth hormone in baseball, right?
It exists, but not everybody's on it. It's not
no.
I bet if you looked at a Major League Baseball team, 50-60% of the guys might be on something. Or if you look at the US track team, 95% of them will be on something.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
No,
I agree. Because I read something about there's I can't remember the tweet, but you said something about there's a sort of a connection between the calorie intake and the endocrine system that you have, the hormone system in your body. Can you expand on that?
A lot of people crash their metabolisms through crash dieting. And so, like I said earlier, the more food you withdraw from your diet, the slower your metabolism is going to respond to become.
Yeah.
And so I've worked with guys who've lost 30 pounds in 30 days, and I'm not giving them salads, right? This is not supposed to happen according to the standard calories in, calories out model. It's in order to lose...
Wait, 1 second. 30 pounds in 30 days?
Yeah.
It's a fuckload of weight.
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yeah, 14 kilos if you're doing the math. But
yeah, I was doing that in my head, but thank you.
Yeah. And so it's you talk to a registered dietitian or an exercise scientist, and so that's impossible, right? Because in order, you must have been on some unsustainable diet. It must feel like water, this and that. No, I'm not putting the guy on diuretics. I'm not telling him to eat salads. I'm telling him to do the opposite of it. And he lost 30 pounds in 30 days, and he didn't even go to the gym. And so how can this happen, right? This can't happen under the standard calorie counting model, because under the standard calorie counting model, a pound is equivalent to 3,500 calories.
Yeah.
For every 3,500 calories that you are in a deficit, you lose 1 pound, according to this increasingly disproven model for how the human body works. Okay, so you mean to tell me that this guy was on a 3,500 calorie deficit every day for 30 days and he didn't even work out? So how is he going to even be at a 3,500 calorie deficit?
Hardcore.
Did he eat food? Yes, he ate food. Well, that's impossible, because his resting metabolic rate must have been 5,000 calories. It's no, it wasn't. It was...
You have to eat negative food.
His body was sick. His body was sick, approaching diet and exercise the way he had been approaching it. He stopped approaching it in a way that made him sick. He started following my system. He got healthy, and he lost 30 pounds in 30 days.
That leads me into something. I didn't write this down. I just wrote it down now. Plenty of people are fat, as you know. So, and one of the most...
I'm aware.
Yeah. I just wanted to remind you. And one of the things that often comes up is people saying, but it's because of my thyroid. Mm-hmm. I'm fat because of my thyroid. Mm-hmm. Is that a thing?
Yeah, you can have thyroid disorders. The way you eat, I mean, that you can live a lifestyle that will be more conducive or less conducive to thyroid disorders. But yes, absolutely. If your thyroid is malfunctioning, so too will your body weight, right?
But help me out here, right? Because I'm still stuck in the old mathematical mindset in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say Arno is at like I don't know. I burn 2,000 calories a day just by being Arno, and now I eat 2,000 calories a day,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm neutral.
Mm-hmm.
The fuck does my thyroid have anything to do with it?
Well, why are you burning 2,000 calories a day at rest? What determines that you burn 2,000 calories a day at rest?
I don't know.
Your thyroid.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, does it like regulate energy flow or something? That
Yeah.
doesn't do. Really?
Yes. Yes. I mean,
All right.
it's a complex system that I haven't like studied,
Obviously, yeah.
but I know the thyroid is like incredibly important in energy regulation. So you talk to people who have thyroid issue. How do you feel? Well, if their thyroid's too slow, then they gain weight and they have no energy, or their
Yeah.
thyroid, hypo versus hyperthyroidism. Their thyroid's either going to be working too slow or working too fast. So their metabolism is either going to be way too slow or way too fast. Energy levels probably going to be too
So
slow.
it puts you into like a winter sleep state, like a bear.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, I don't know exactly.
No,
like,
but
roughly speaking, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now that you say that the whole like the amount of energy you burn isn't set in stone, that makes a lot more sense. Because I used to say like that's all bullshit. Just eat less, which is obviously
Most people should be eating less. To
Yeah.
be fair, like the average sedentary person should be eating 2 meals a day. I think only one meal a day with carbs. They just don't need the carbs, right?
So that will be lunch and dinner.
Yeah, breakfast, lunch, whatever. Breakfast, dinner, like
No, breakfast is gay.
Twice.
I don't like breakfast.
Yeah, then don't eat it. Right?
All right.
You're not gonna die. Just don't eat breakfast. It'll be fine.
I'll just get coffee.
Yeah, it's fine.
What do you do? Like, do you do 3 meals?
I do as many as I want. Right? Some days it's 2, some days it's 5. It's just however I'm feeling. So this is the thing. Like, as people have gotten more connected to like university stuff and like studies, they don't realize that your hunger is a very strong indicator of how much food you should be eating, particularly if you put yourself in the right situation so that your hunger signals are accurate. Are you sleeping well? Are you drinking enough water? Are you managing your stress? Are you working out? Okay, if you can check the box on all those things, chances are, if your body's hungry, it's because you need food.
You can trust the signal.
Yeah, and if your body's not hungry, you don't need food, right? And so if you just eat according to your hunger levels, which is what I teach people how to do, it's a lot easier to lose weight than counting and weighing everything. And so I can't eat that, but I want to. I eat chocolate at midnight.
Depriving yourself of stuff.
Yeah, I eat burgers at midnight. I eat fried chicken at midnight. I eat pizza at midnight, chocolate, like whatever. It's just like I make sure I'm hungry before I eat it.
You're making it really sexy though, eating fried, chocolate and burgers and pizza at midnight.
Yeah, well, I'm hungry. So I'm hungry, I'm gonna eat. Right? I'm not gonna go to bed hungry. Fuck that. but it's because I'm hungry. If I wasn't hungry, I wouldn't be eating that stuff. If I wasn't hungry and I ate it, I'd get fat. But I am in fact hungry because I work out at a high level. So my body needs food to recover from my training. So I eat the food that my body asks for.
I see. Do you do weightlifting? Do you do cardio?
Yeah, I do cardio, but my cardio is targeted towards speed, not endurance. So like you look at 100-meter sprinters. Do you think 100-meter sprinters are getting on the exercise bike for 30 minutes? I think they're doing 30-minute walks, counting their steps, getting 10,000 steps in.
No, it'd be gay.
No, they're doing sprints. They're doing plyometric work in sprints. And so if you sum up the amount of calories that they're going to burn doing plyometrics and sprints, a guy walking 10,000 steps is going to burn way more calories than an Olympic sprinter doing plyo work and like a handful of 100-meter sprints.
Yeah.
Right. But who's going to look better with their shirt off? Olympic sprinter. Why? It's because their workouts are oriented. I mean, there's a genetic component to it. Obviously, you can't dismiss that. But their workouts are oriented towards power, not distance.
Yeah, I mean, long distance people look like skeletons. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, because their resting metabolic rate isn't through the roof. For the resting metabolic rate of a power athlete, of like a 100-meter sprinter, those guys are probably burning 3,000 calories at rest, 2,800 calories at rest.
But is that like all muscle mass?
Muscle mass or muscle math?
No, muscle mass. Sorry.
Well, I say that because the answer would be different depending on what it is.
I don't even know what muscle
No.
math is. I mean,
Well, okay,
muscle mass, I can do that.
so your resting metabolic rate will be higher when you have more muscle, but if you're an Olympic sprinter, you weigh 180 pounds, 170 pounds of lean mass, 10 pounds of fat. Well, there's plenty of people in the general population with 170 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But they're carrying a lot more fat. Okay, so why is the sprinter carrying less fat than the average person who has the same muscle mass? It's because they're performing power movements, and there's some conditioning component to it.
But I mean, wait a second. I mean, if let's say let's go with your example. I'm 180 pounds and I'm carrying like 60 pounds of fat around, or I'm 180 pounds, I'm 20 pounds of fat, whatever, it doesn't matter. Wouldn't the guy carrying more fat around by definition burn more calories because he's carrying it around?
They both weigh the same, right?
Well, the guy with 20 pounds of fat weighs less per definition. Like he's more ripped. He's more,
What's the total weight for both of them?
Well, let's say 200 versus 240.
Okay, so the fat guy weighs 240, so he's carrying more fat around. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so yes, the act of walking will burn more calories for the 240-pound person than the 200.
Yeah, obviously.
Person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the act of living is probably burning more calories for the 200-pound person than the 240-pound person, which is why he weighs 200 pounds and not 240 pounds.
But why is that, though? I don't get it.
Something that he's doing or the way that he's eating is most likely influencing his endocrine system to change his hunger levels so that he's eating less, right? Or making sure that what he is eating is being converted into muscle, right? So if you eat 3,000 calories a day but you don't lift weights, your body's going to look a lot different than if you eat 3,000 calories a day and you do lift weights, okay? And then if you do exercise, your body's going to crave different foods than if you don't exercise, right? So you don't do the same things.
Yeah.
If two people did identical things, they probably wouldn't end up with a 40-pound gap. I mean, it could be. There's genetic components.
Yeah, no, but it wouldn't make sense, right? They would.
Yeah. Like you don't become obese by training regularly and eating protein-dominant food. It just doesn't happen.
No.
Right. You become obese by living an unhealthy lifestyle for many, many years, and then you have metabolic dysfunction. Your body starts craving food it doesn't need because it gets confused. But yeah, like the reason why, I don't know, like it's not that hard. Just be an athlete. If you just focus on being an athlete and increase your performance in the gym, your ability to lift heavy weights with good form and condition properly, and eat food when you're hungry and don't eat when you're not hungry, you're almost certainly not going to be fat.
So
that's simple.
Are you saying that your body sort of responds with the hunger cravings towards the exercise that you do?
Yes. If you lift heavier weights, your body's going to crave more meat because it needs the protein to repair itself. You stop craving junk if you work out hard. If you don't work out hard, your body craves like McDonald's. If you work out hard, your body's going to start steering you towards healthier food choices most of the time. The way you train influences the way you eat, which influences the way you train.
So there's something in your body that moves you towards, healthier or more real food choices when you work out.
Yeah, talk to anybody who's working out regularly versus not working out regularly. It's much easier to sustain a diet when you're training regularly. Your body craves healthier foods. When you're sedentary, your body doesn't crave healthy foods. It craves processed foods.
Yeah.
And so you eat that, and processed foods don't have very much satiety to them. So you can kind of eat them abundantly without getting any nutrients. So they don't really make you full, but you've still gone through a bag of Cheetos, go through another bag of Cheetos because you're still hungry, because you're not getting nutrients from it. It's not designed to nourish you. It's designed to have you consume it like a drug.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like most people's lifestyles are incredibly unhealthy. Don't do what they do.
And I mean, when you give the example of the guy losing 30 pounds in 30 days, right? There's this standard advice saying you can only lose 2 pounds or one or 2 pounds in a week or something. I can't remember exactly the number, right?
That's because it's because they're going off of caloric deficits. So what they're really saying is you should eat at least 2,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
Right. And you shouldn't do like more than an hour of cardio per day. And so if you eat or say it's 1,600 calories, say if you're eating 1,600 calories a day and you're not doing over an hour of cardio a day, like the quote unquote caloric deficit that you accrue over 7 days is no more than 2 pounds worth. Right.
Yeah.
And so the reason that advice is given is because that tends to be like the upper limit for how much weight you can lose following the calorie counter type systems. But if your body is completely unhealthy from having deprived it of essential nutrients for many months in a row, and you all of a sudden you resuscitate it, then magic can happen. It's sort of like, what's the most amount of muscle you can gain in a month? It's like, generally speaking, it's 2 pounds. But if you took somebody who had cancer and you cured his cancer, and then you say, okay, now go lift, it's like that guy can gain 20 pounds in a month. Yeah. It doesn't mean that, the limits are only created based on most people's situations, but not everybody's in the same situation as the average person. Some people are overweight because they undereat, and they've been undereating for years.
Wait. They are overweight because they undereat?
That's the guy who lost 30 pounds in 30 days. He ate more under my system.
Okay. So
his endocrine system was highly dysfunctional because of the way he was approaching dieting. So he stopped doing the thing that was very dysfunctional, and his body stopped acting like it was sick and ditched 30 pounds.
I see. Yeah, I see. So would it be fair to say that the whole like weight loss, calories in, calories out stuff is predicated upon math that is super oversimplified?
Yes.
And leaves out most of the logical, factors that should factor into it?
Correct. That's very accurate.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you might be onto something, man.
People pay me the big bucks for a reason. Right? It's like, I didn't. Again, when I was in college, I didn't realize a fitness influencer could be a job. Right? I specifically avoided the fitness.
That wasn't the thing when you and I were in college. That wasn't the thing. No.
Yeah, I specifically avoided the fitness industry because I don't be a trainer. It's stupid. But like, I happened to learn a much easier way to go about doing it.
And how did you learn that?
Trial and error on myself. And then it happened to work for other people too. But
no, but I get that. But at a certain point, you're getting chubby. You realize, nah, that's not me. So you decide to go a different route. But
no, I told you, I just experimented with my running. That's it. I just, I want to run faster. I'm just going to run fast. That's all. I wasn't expecting to lose fat from it. I was just expecting to be able to run faster.
But that's the physical part, right? That's not the eating part.
Well, I mean, the physical part was the first part. That's how I know that the way people train is wrong. Is because I didn't change my diet intentionally. Right.
If I want to get, let's say I want to get a 6-pack, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that exercise is the main part or diet?
They're the same. They both feed into each other. So people say, oh, you got to clean up your diet. You do. But what's the easiest way to clean up your diet? I think the easiest way to clean up your diet is to change your training. Right.
That makes sense.
Because if your workouts are really hard, you're going to realize that they're easier if you eat a certain way. So I would rather have dietary changes be something that you do to make your life easier rather than make your life harder. So the way we make dietary changes make your life easier is by cranking up the intensity on your workouts and have you realize, like, man, if I'm not eating like a good amount of steak and carbs before this, I'm not going to make it through. So I'm not going to do meal prep because I'm supposed to do meal prep. I'm going to do meal prep so I don't throw up during my workout.
Yeah.
Right. Then it becomes
so
a lot easier.
diet is like a consequence of exercise in a way.
It can be downstream from it. Yeah. Like the harder you work out, the cleaner you want to eat. The harder you know you're going to work out, the cleaner you're going to want to eat. So like I never approached dieting, oh, this is a hard thing I'm going to do. I just approached it like, well, what are the easiest changes that I can make that make my training easier? And then what happens if I play with my macro consumption and see if I can, like, what happens if I just don't consume as much sugar? What happens if I just don't consume as much carbs? Just a little bit of carbs, but not a lot. How does that work? And, you know, I backed into one of the most sustainable diets, if not the most sustainable diet that anybody has created and commercialized.
I mean, bro, I've seen the pics of your meals and they look absolutely delicious. Like, I mean,
because they are. Yeah,
I have to be fair. Like I've seen a lot of like bodybuilding meals. Like I won't name names, but some of these people have diet books, and
they look like shit.
They look like they're eating COVID or something.
Right.
It's so bad.
Right. And they turn people off to fitness. It's like, why would you tell somebody to eat chicken and rice or potatoes and chicken? It's like
broccoli.
It's like, if people wanted to eat that, they would have been eating it. They don't want to eat that. That's the reason why they're not following a diet.
Yeah.
So I'll show you what I eat. I eat pizza, tacos, fried chicken, and burgers almost every meal.
Yeah, I mean, your stuff looks amazing. True. And I mean, to be fair, like, I mean, I can say your stuff looks amazing, but you yourself, you look like, I mean, you're in great shape, obviously.
Yes, right? Because the food has nutrients. It's nutrient-dense food.
It's real food.
That allows me to train at a high level. So I'm not, just because I eat pizza 10 times a month doesn't mean I'm ordering Domino's pizza 10 times a month. Just because I eat tacos 10 times a month doesn't mean I'm eating Taco Bell 10 times a month. Just because I eat fried chicken a handful of times a month doesn't mean I'm eating KFC a handful of times a month.
Very different.
Just because I'm eating burgers doesn't mean I'm eating McDonald's. Right. Yeah. The name of the food is the same, but the ingredients in it are different. Yeah. And the way I consume it is very methodical, right? I'm intentional about how I eat. I can name everything I put in my body over the last 24 hours. I only eat when I'm hungry and I stop eating when I'm full. So there's very particular ways that I go about doing it, but it's all aligned with what my body's craving. I'm not having to counter signals. I'm not having to ignore hunger signals, which, by the way, I'm having right now. So I got like 3 more minutes before I got to go eat a 2-pound steak that I cooked, because like I don't do hunger. I just don't do it. I'm like, I
don't want to keep you off your food. Let me ask you one last question before I log off. There are a lot of like fat kids these days.
Yeah.
And being me, like unfiltered, I think I once tweeted out that having a fat kid is child abuse. Mm-hmm. That's just you abusing your child. If you had a fat kid, or if you saw that your kid was putting on pounds, what would you do?
Sports, and make sure you eat real food. Like if your kid has a genetic predisposition to gaining weight, then they're
okay, but that's like less than 1%. Let's be real, right?
A few percent.
All right, less than 5%. Can we agree on that?
Well, it depends. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't. It's a sliding scale.
Way more politically correct than I am. Come on, I mean,
it's a sliding scale. It's not like you have a fat gene. It's like some people have fatter genes, and some, so it really depends. Like, how fat are we talking about? But like, okay, so probably, if everybody eats real food, 5 to 10% of the population is still going to be obese, right? Not 50%, but 5 to 10%. A portion of the population is going to be obese. And even like people who I work with, some people are just like, dude, you're just not going to have abs unless you take additional steps to do it. And it's up to you to decide if you want to take those additional steps. I can get most people to 14% body fat, 13% body fat pretty comfortably. But some people, like genetically, they're just not going to have 10% body fat unless they take potentially unsustainable steps, and that's their choice.
But I mean, 13, 14%, that's not like bad.
Right.
Right?
It's just not ripped, but like,
No.
correct. Okay, so if you have a kid who's fat, most likely it's a consequence of they're not eating real food, they're eating too much junk food, and they're not getting outside and playing enough. If kids go play outside and eat real food at home, they're most likely not going to be fat. But, you know, a lot of times if mom's working, then kids are at childcare, or they're inside playing video games, right? They're eating
Alex,
food.
like when you and I were young, right? We were in classrooms. I don't know how many fat kids you had, but we had
I was a fat kid. I was a fat kid.
Okay. You know, I don't want to pick
bagel
on you.
bites and Pop-Tarts. But I was fat. I was fat because I ate bagel bites, Pop-Tarts, boxed frozen desserts. And that was when I was fat.
We had like one fat kid in class, and that's it.
Right.
And now, like, I mean, it seems like almost half of them are fat. It's weird.
Because they're eating food that's devoid of nutrients, and they're not exercising.
So
yes, a great recipe for being fat is to eat food that's devoid of nutrients and not exercise. You'll almost certainly become fat in those conditions. And if your kid is fat and those two things are true, then make those two things not true.
True. All right. That's a great way to conclude this interview. I do appreciate that, man. I actually, a lot of things make way more sense for me when, you know, I was looking at it from a mathematical perspective, but if you look at it from that perspective and you really realize that there are quite a few things that are not taken into account, that makes things make much more sense. Like if you're trying to solve the formula, but then you realize, holy shit, there are much more things that weigh into this. Well, then it's gonna be hard to solve anything, right? Because there's way more things factoring into the equation. So, well, thanks a lot. I will we'll be in touch about which sources I need to include, etc. But I do very much appreciate it, man. It's cleared up a lot for me.
Awesome.
I'm sure it will for my audience as well.